Welcome everyone to another workshop here in the pre-kindergarten primary PK-3 series here at the test camp. This is the mathematics workshop, so let's discuss how learning and practicing test skills will empower your test confidence. Those of you joining us live online, we wish you could be here with us, but of course you're welcome to contribute your comments anytime, and we'll include as many as possible in the discussions. If you join us directly on demand through the Test Camp YouTube channel, of course you have an advantage. You can pause and restart or replay that video anytime. Now in many states, the test required for this certificate is the Early Childhood Education Test. And these are the main competencies that are being tested on one single exam. In Florida, the exam is named differently, and mathematics is just one of 4 separate tests. So let's look at those differences again. As you can see here, exams can be different in every state. Early childhood education, up at the top there, that's a single test. The Florida FTCE is named differently, and it's based on different competencies. And mathematics is an individual test. All right? Now you've been with us before, so you know by now around here the motto is prepare, practice, and perform. Everyone who has successfully completed the training has passed their test, and that's because test taking is a skill which requires practice, and this is the only place to learn and practice the test skills. To prepare here at the test camp means to understand yourself. It's an honest assessment of how well you know the test content, and an honest assessment of how much you know about your testing skills. So we start by learning the test blueprint. Those of you who participated in the career workshops, you know that the blueprint provides all the information you need to fully understand a test. All right, how many of you have participated in at least one of these workshops or you've watched it on demand? Okay, quite a few of you, very good. Well, assessing your knowledge of the blueprint, then you know, is the first indicator of how well you're going to perform on the test, because you'll know the content to expect and you'll know the rules of the test. Right? This can also be a good first step to creating what we call my study plan. This is simply a schedule, a personal schedule that you can make that includes reviewing and studying the test content. All right, let's get back and learn more about that blueprint. Here's an overview of the entire 120 question early childhood exam. Now the allotted time is 120 minutes, so about 1 minute average for each question. Notice that 30 questions, a full 25% of the exam, is based on the knowledge of mathematics. Again, the exam in Florida is a series of 4 individual tests, and each one is very different. The Florida mathematics test has 45 multiple choice questions, and the time allotted is 70 minutes. So over 1 minute allotted for each question. What's that, about 1.5 minutes? All right, so knowing this is going to help put you on a pace for success, because you're going to decide when to answer a question and when not to, when to mark and save it for the next pass through, and you can come back around. And that's one of the skills you get to practice over at the testing center, at the training center, right? All right, so our first step here today then is to identify what types of mathematics questions you can expect to encounter on your test. Not what types of question format, because we know they're all multiple choice. We're identifying the mathematics competencies that are used to construct questions by the test writers. On this test, there are 6 competencies, and we isolate each competency in our individual quizzes here at the test camp. You'll see that taking quizzes based on each competency provides you an instant feedback and points you in the direction to review and study. Now for the people in Florida, which competency on this test was not on the GK? Remember the general knowledge test? That's correct. There was no teaching on there. And it's the same with core academic skills in many of the other states. So instructional strategies, assessment, appropriate for elementary students, that sort of thing, those are on other tests. Okay, let's take a closer look at each competency, beginning up there at the top with numbers. You're going to find on the test information guides published by the state that these are the main concepts associated with numbers. Proving competency in numbers includes proving your skill with place value, rounding and estimating, and several other skills. But we're just going to talk about the main ones here today. And let's take a look at a couple sample questions based on this competency. All right, so is it clear why this question was created from numbers? Right, that's what the test writers were done. They were told, write test questions based on numbers, and they did, fractions. Here's another one. This one, the test writers put 3 different kinds of numbers right there in the answer set. Can you tell just from the answers that this is going to be a numbers question? There it is. And again, there's many types of questions on a quiz, and over at the training center you'll have a chance to practice as many of these as you want. The next competency we know about is algebra, and this might be the easiest concept to identify because you can just look for variables and you can look for equations. If you did, now you found an algebra question. How about this next one? That's algebra, right? Right, and I think there is one more here. Whoa, here's one to mark and save. Way too much reading. I think in this case they want you to create the equations. It's definitely one you would mark and save and come back around to after you've answered all the less challenging questions. The second type of algebra question involves the coordinate plane. Do you remember the coordinate plane? Probably from middle school. So why was there a need in middle school for the teaching of the coordinate plane? Anybody remember? All right, well, it has to do with position and direction, movement in space. This on a two-dimensional plane here. Let's think about it. As 0 is your starting point, what do you need to get up to that position? Yeah, you need to know the position and you need to know the direction also. So there's the position. The direction is called the slope. So those are ordered pairs, tells you the position, slope tells you the direction. Again, there's a quiz designed just to test your knowledge in this area. The competency, that's the third on our list, is geometry. Now, if you had to explain geometry in just one word, what would you say? To elementary students, what are we studying? Shapes, right. So let's look at some sample questions. Here's only a set of the answers here and see what you think. Yeah, even without the STEM, it's clear that this is a question based on geometry. Here's another sample question, again with just the answer set. So geometry questions are easy to identify. I think we can see one more here. And the next mathematics competency then is measurement. Remember, geometry was shapes. When you think of measurement, think of units. Right? When these are measured, height, weight, distance, and speed. Right? And here's some examples. What's this a question about? Speed. Okay, so distance, speed, right? So this is definitely a question related to measurement. How about this one? Okay, she's got to do some measuring in there too, right? May have to know a little bit of geometry in there. But you're sure to get one of these, and this is definitely one that you're probably going to want to mark and save. Okay, here's a question where you're measuring, but you're measuring a shape. So it's a combination, isn't it? A little bit of measurement and a little bit of geometry. But that's not the point. You're not going to have to say that. It's just that this will help you know which types of questions you might want to go and review and study before your test. So here again are the 4 competencies, the first 4. If you remember the 5th one, don't say it out loud. You're going to talk about it there at your tables for just a couple of minutes. When you get it, be ready to explain what types of questions might come from this competency. I'll give you a hint. What do we know about this competency from the past, and what do we know about the future? Okay, let's see if that helps you. We'll come back and talk about this as an entire group. All right, those of you joining us today live online, share your thoughts and we're going to include them up there in the discussion. And if you're joining us by the Test Camp YouTube channel online or on demand, this might be a good time to pause the recording and think about this competency. By the way, which is data. I'm sure you know that. And do you know what's included in data? What What's that all about? Well, we'll be here when you restart the video and talk about it. All right, I'm pretty certain going around here, everybody came up with the fifth competency, which is data. And here at the test camp, we identify these types of questions easily because they're a report of facts. What was geometry? Shapes. What was measurement? Units. What is data? Facts. It's really that simple. And if you're talking about a set of facts from the past or even from the present, that's called statistics. If a data question is based on a prediction of the future, that's called, anybody know? Probability. Yes, probability. Now, one thing about data questions is they oftentimes include images, wouldn't they? Or tables or charts, maybe some graphs, right? Here's another example coming up. So during your training, you're going to learn that these are ones you mark and save. You pass through these on the first time on the test. You really want to get in there and answer them, but boy, you can slow down your momentum. So you answer the least challenging questions the first time through. You come back to these the next time. Another data question you see quite often is related to central tendency. Can somebody tell me what this means? Yes, right over here. Central tendency. How would you explain this to a third grader, for example? What's in the middle? There you go. So that's what your question is going to ask you to find what's in the middle. And there's three main ways. Do you remember these now? All right, so here's an example of finding what's in the middle. All right, there you go. And of course, we'll tell you how you can study for these. Very inexpensive way to do all that. We'll tell you in just a couple minutes here. And of course, what did we say was included on the Florida subject area exams is teaching. So expect questions related to both instruction and assessment. And here's an example of a question related to instruction, starting down here at the bottom. The answer set. All right, so you know that's instruction, and a question related to assessment. There you go. All right, so that's a brief overview of the competencies, the types of questions you can expect on your test. What do you think this data represents? Yes, the number of questions represented by each competency. So what implications might that have for your study plan? Might want to look at those numbers. I don't know. So what do you know about the percent to pass? Right, 68%. Doesn't seem very high, does it? But this is not a test that's trying to teach you the math. Right, so let's do some math here. We're going to say 68%. There's, say, 45 questions. We're going to assume that's 70%, just to round it up there a little bit. So about 30, 31 questions, you'll be in really good shape. It's 80% to pass here at the test camp. So if you can pass us, you're going to be fine. And what we say in the training is go find your 31. Remember we talked about there's a lot of questions you skip and you come back around to. So finally, let's go ahead and talk about this. Knowing everything you know from today, which would you choose when you decide to review and study? Are you someone who likes to go and look through the challenging sections first? Or are you somebody who likes to go through the least challenging sections first? How do you go about your study plan for a test like this? We'll come back as a group and compare your ideas. Again, for you joining us today live online, share your thoughts and we'll include them in the discussion. And if you're joining us on demand, this might be a good time to pause the recording and list some of your thoughts about how you review and study for a multiple choice test like this. We'll be here when you restart the video. Welcome back for the last time up here. If you've participated in the other workshops, you remember that there's really no best approach to this. Everybody has their personal preference. But in any case, we agreed that we're going to need to go back and review and maybe even study for this, right? So how do you do that? Well, how do you prepare to do that? Well, you did today. You came here to this workshop. Hopefully you gained some knowledge. Was this worth your time today? Well, I'm glad to hear that. Another way to prepare is to select the tools you might need, the resources for guaranteeing your success. Expect to see this sign along the way. Now, many of you have been in these skills tests before, you've been over at the training site. These are the messages that are being left by those who've gone before you. Like, they like to leave encouraging messages, and we post them up for them. In this case, the message is avoid spending your time and money on expensive resources that you just don't need. Commercial webinars are a good example. They say avoid paying for free test information and avoid paying for these because they tell you about all these strategies. There's no place to practice. Okay, expensive tutors and tutoring companies might be an option for more challenging tests. What would be maybe Algebra 2 and above, but this is just 8th grade curriculum here. And overpriced study guides. Many people get trapped by this. They'll go out and buy a $30 study guide, or more expensive, right? I've heard of 40. You've heard of 40? Wow. Well, many study guides are available, and they're either free or inexpensive. We'll show you in just a moment. But a more effective and inexpensive resource really is textbooks. Now that you know the competencies being tested, you can use textbooks to review for the test, right? And over at the Training Center in the My Resources area, you can find the most popular and up-to-date resources. And there I was telling you, there's a study guide. That thing is excellent for all the tests that are out there, the state tests. $5 for a used copy will show up in 2 days off of Amazon for you. So again, those who've gone before you, their suggestion is instead of investing time and money on resources, invest in yourself. Practice your test skills. That's how you gain confidence. That's how you gain personal independence and skills that you can pass on to your students. Your pass provides admission to these training areas. Up there at the top is My Test, and that's the activity that enables you to check your understanding of the test blueprint, everything we've talked about here today. You can also take a pretest over there at the My Test area. This is the test camp problem solving system. The first step to finding a correct answer, what's that say up there at the top? It's what we've been doing today. Identify the type of question by the competency. There's quizzes and tests that provide an opportunity to practice your test skills while you're assessing your test content knowledge. So you're really getting both. 2 hands clapping there. And the quizzes are based on the competencies. There's even a combined quiz, if you see down there at the end, is like a mini test before you go on to the practice test over in the test center. And the post test can help you earn points towards a professional test certificate. All right, so expect to perform with confidence that comes from the knowledge and skills that you've earned during the training. There's no better time than now. Let's get on over there. Empower your test confidence.